What would you do if you found yourself trapped, unable to move? This reality is one that Cinderella found herself in during the first part of Old Tale's story. Our understanding of corruption, how it works, and how it is manipulated has also been hidden in plain sight. Within the event map, main story, and most of all, the minigame, we find information that we can slowly piece together. Countless mysteries still remain about Cinderella's corruption, and initially, I approached the possibility that one of her very own members was guilty. Today, I intend to double down on this notion, provide evidence and reasoning on how I came to this conclusion. This will be recorded all before the events of Part 2, when this theory will either go up in flames or prove to be true. So today, join me as we comb through all the information we have, all the hints we are given, and all the signs that point to Red Shoes. In order to lay the groundwork for this theory, we need to first address Red Shoes herself. Red Shoes is a member of Old Tales, the second-generation Grimm's model to succeed Goddess, to aid in the fight to take back the surface. Prior to this, Red Shoes, much like Abe, was a great researcher and figurehead in the VTC, the conglomerate working alongside the United Forces of Humanity. Abe, through Part 1, is also revealed to be the one who built Old Tales by her own hand. It is also revealed that Red Shoes has similar, or even greater knowledge and understanding than the research Abe had conducted. This is where our first interaction of the main story occurs, and where the seeds of doubt are planted with Red Shoes.
Why did you apply to be a candidate?
Me? I wanted to become famous, and I desired power.
That's surprising to hear.
I realize it may sound absurd for a top researcher at VTC and high-ranking priest to say this, but those are indeed my true intentions. Only by moving my way up the corridors of power will I be able to acquire the knowledge I desire and accomplish what I wish to achieve. There is something I'm after, and in order to make it a reality, I require both power and knowledge of these secrets which currently elude me.
What is that?
To unify everything.
To unify everything, not everyone. To gain knowledge and power to achieve this goal. These are the wishes of Red Shoes, and the methods she uses in order to obtain such greatness are nothing short of disturbing. On the eve of deployment for Cinderella's joint mission with Goddess, Red Shoes sits down and shares a cup of tea with Cinderella. The following morning, after conducting maintenance on Cinderella alongside Abe, the massacre of the Elysian lab occurs. Originally, all signs pointed to either Abe or Red Shoes being the culprit. Despite this, the map itself points to the real traitor. Following the completion of Story 1-5, we see another portion of the map open up. The scenery turns from a brilliant blue to a vibrant red. Above the goddesses, we see another person, the only member of Old Tales represented in this liminal space, Red Shoes. In addition, for the next 5 days, relics regarding corruption would appear exclusively near Red Shoes herself. These relics speak of the progress in which humanity took to discover and study corruption, and ultimately uncovering the fact that it could be manipulated. On the final day of the corruption report, one interesting thing is also unearthed. It has been confirmed that corruption forcibly issues a command to Nymph. What we are seeing is not paralysis, but rather a command to seize all actions, a kill switch. There also appears to be a partial connection to verbal commands. While it may be possible to implant other types of override commands, at this point in time, we have not seen any cases exhibiting anything other than disruptions of physical actions. Further tracking for additional cases is necessary. So far, The only cases discovered are related to the seizing of physical commands. Numerous antidotes and vaccine programs have been attempted to treat the corruption, but none have proven effective. Fortunately, thanks to NIMH's natural defense capabilities, the invasive bodies cease their activity within a short period. Since there are still many things about NIMH itself which remain unclear, proactive treatment is currently impossible. Until we know more about NIMH, any research on the treatment of corruption will be temporarily halted. But there's just one problem. Why is there one missing report bridging the gap between understanding corruption and manipulating it? This is one of the first instances of a sequential set of relics missing in entry, but the question remains as to the connection between Red Shoes and these notes. Approaching Red Shoes in the event map yields one phrase to be uttered by Cinderella: "Red Shoes, how could you?" In addition to the glaring amount of suspicion pointed at Red Shoes, there's also the minigame's information that we have to take a look at too. Into the Mirror follows Cinderella on her journey through corruption, the skewed image she sees when conducting heinous acts in the name of the Queen. Through this minigame, the player has the opportunity to collect currency in order to unlock various improvements to Cinderella's combat ability. There's also the option to purchase these sets of collectibles that reveal a bit more to the story. Some of these are recollection of NIKKEs who become corrupted. Some describe journals from Abe when repairing old tales, but one describes something completely different. There's more to this place than we initially thought. The voice we heard belongs to a NIKKE. There is a NIKKE here with her head exposed, as if she's undergone some kind of brain surgery. Not just her, many other NIKKE show signs of similar surgical procedures. It's a horrific sight. The strange part is that all of their eyes have turned red. What kind of experiments were they conducting here? The mechanical sounds we heard outside were indeed from Raptures. The Raptures have had their armaments removed, rendering them immobile. Notably, they have all been corrupted. What was the person running this place trying to do? Were they experimenting with corruption on the NIKKEs? I'll continue to search for clues about who's behind this horror show. I've found something that may lead to who's behind all of this. It's a report on VTC's corruption research. The person in charge is listed as Red Shoes. Not only was Red Shoes a researcher for VTC, but she was also the lead figurehead in the study of corruption. In previous entries, Abe also describes herself as being not as versed in corruption as Red Shoes is. At the moment, we don't have access to the other 3 files leading up to this discovery, locked by part 2 of the story being unreleased at this time. Despite this, it paints a rather gruesome picture. Red Shoes, at some point, had tinkered with manipulating corruption in order to control it to a certain degree. As we know from NIKKE's main story, corruption is most similar to that of a line of code implanted into a NIKKE's nymph. This code hijacks a NIKKE entirely, overriding its original derivatives, replacing it with the will of the caster, or in this case, the Queen. In Red Shoes' case though, I feel she did this in order to gain power of her own, or to completely shatter Cinderella's chances of achieving what she could not. Exploring the map of Old Tales and navigating to this specific tab, we can see a preview for the splash art of part 2 of Old Tales' story. In part 1, we see afflicted areas represented by shattered glass, fragments of where Cinderella had injured Old Tales. In part 2, we see all but one member whole. That member being our suspect, Red Shoes. The suspicion around Red Shoes is more than mere speculation, and the evidence is irrefutable to not say that she's a suspect, at the very least. A traitor amidst the ranks of humanity's strongest. Until part 2 rolls around, This is about all we can infer from the story thus far. What are your theories on red shoes? Let me know in the comment section down below. Wednesday is the next installment of this story, and I can't wait to cover it with all of you. Thank you all for joining me, and I will see you all in the next video. Jane.